And the next question will be asked by Representative Dave Millard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary, welcome.
Thank you.
I'd like to talk to you about the bank shares tax for a moment. The governor's proposed 2015-16 budget would increase the bank shares tax rate from 0.89% to 1.25% retroactively back to the 2014 tax year to achieve the revenue neutrality intended with the enactment of Act 52 of 2013. I recognize that the General Assembly intended the changes of Act 52 to be revenue neutral, but what have you heard from the banking industry as it relates to this higher retroactive bank shares tax? And before you answer, I just want to mention to you that I heard from our local bankers, and resoundingly, they've all told me that it will affect small business loans, and the list goes on, you know, what it will cost them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to say first and foremost that the bank shares tax has a long, complex financial, economic, and legislative history. It's not a simple topic, as we all know. I understand that when Act 52 of July 9th, 2013 was enacted, it required a report, a detailed report, to determine whether the changes to the bank and trust company shares were sufficiently addressed. The Revenue Department, and as you all appreciate, the Banking and Securities Department is not primarily responsible for this. We hope to be as supportive of the banking community as possible, but it primarily rests with the Revenue Department. The goals were really to make significant changes in the structure, but also provide predictable tax revenues, as you mentioned, the revenue neutrality. And the report came back, and it was finished by the Department of Revenue in January. The report came back and cited a number of technical changes that they thought there was confusion about a number of the items in it. And also the estimates, the experience has been that it has not been revenue neutral. Having said all of that, I do appreciate that the banking community is always concerned whenever changes are made. I do think that the budget that's being proposed, as well as the things that have been the notice that was put into place in January, et cetera, I do think they reflect a good faith effort to reconcile the intent of revenue neutrality with technical corrections. And I know that without having real numbers and correct numbers, it's very hard to assess which predictions and which prognostications are correct and which aren't. It's a lot of moving targets. So what I can offer is that we will do our best to support the banking industry based on true facts as they are represented to us.
And do you think that 1.25%, based on the numbers that you're getting and working with, is the corrected number from the 0.089 that we're going to go?
As it was described to me, and remember, I'm not privy to the revenues. There is a wall there because it's a revenue department, and we aren't part of the revenue collection agency. But as I understand it, with some of the technical changes, with the base changing, the rate has to change. So I would suggest that I think the numbers, as I see the reconciliation, hold true. It's just an issue. You have to determine what you want as the base in terms of getting to the rate is an outgrowth of the base as it's determined by the legislature.
And just to follow through to the future here, when looking at the governor's budget book, I see steady growth for the financial institutions tax after the proposed rate increase, growing by roughly 4% to 5% each year from 2017-18 to 2019-20. Is this a sign of strength within the industry, or is this estimate an indication of more stringent federal requirements?
Could you just repeat the tax revenues that you think are increasing?
Yeah, it says tax after the proposed rate increase growing 4% to 5% each year from 2017-18 to 2019-20.
As it relates to the banking community?
The governor's budget book, steady growth for the financial institutions tax.
I think it's generally a reflection of the economy. It's not a reflection of the federal regulatory structure. I think it's a reasonable projection, and I would hope that it's correct.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your responses. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.